All right, this video is on making classroom proofs. So the task that I have right now is to take these images from a project in HH Schools and create a proof form for each student that will show their class photo and then have the order form attached to it. So in order to do that, we're going to use several different programs. First thing I'm going to have to do is pull the classroom data information out of HH Schools. So I'm going to take this information that shows me the teacher or the group name, the group ID number, and the group image number, and I'm going to put that into an Excel spreadsheet. Then I'm going to get a report of every student individually, one student, one data file for each student showing what group they belong to and their student ID number, and we're going to put that information into Excel. Then we're going to pull the images here from HH Schools into a folder that we can use to put the pictures on the proof forms. And then we're going to use the data from Excel to create a merged file in InDesign to make the proofs. So first I'm going to show you real quickly how to do the pull the data. It's pretty easy to get the data out of our groups. Right here is our under setup groups, project setup groups is all of our group names. You can check to make sure that every group has an image just by scrolling through and making sure there's a JPEG selected for each one of those. I've already checked those and made sure that those were correct. That's a first step before we do anything, is to make sure that those groups are all correct. Next thing I'm going to do is do Control All in that box, and then Control C will copy that. Then I can save that. I'm going to open the Excel sheet, and I'm going to paste that into my Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there as text. And so now I have the group name, I have the group ID number, and then I have the group image. Faculty and staff is not needed, and so I'm just going to delete that row. And I'm going to rename this as class lookup. We'll use that in a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that data onto a new tab, and I'm going to paste special and transpose. What I want to do is to get this so that I have these file names in a row across here. I need that in just a minute in Lightroom. So now I'm going to save, clicked on that sheet, I'm going to save that file as a CSV file, and I'm going to put it in the folder with my other data for that project. So this is in Eastchester Spring. I'm going to make a new folder for groups, classroom photos. Right there. And I'm going to save this file as a CSV file. And I'm going to name this as S18 Eastchester Elementary School class photo names. And I'm just going to save that file there. Okay. Now I'm going to go into Lightroom. While Lightroom's opening, I'm going to go to that file I just created. And class photo names. And I want to open that file with Notepad. What that gives me is this long list of file names here, separated by commas. I'm going to copy that list of file names so that I can pull those individual images into Lightroom and do a little editing on them so that they'll look correct on my proof sheet. Okay, so Lightroom is opened. I'm going to go into my library module, go to folders, and what I'm going to do is add to my, this is my image correction catalog, just somewhere where I can bring images in, do some work on them, and then export them. So I'm going to add a folder. I'm going to browse to where those images are stored. So that's on the JSON laptop, 2017-2018 schools, under HH Schools, project data, and then S18 Eastchester Spring, under the high-res images, there's a camera called group. So I'm going to select that folder, and what that'll do is bring in all of those group images from that folder. And once that's done, I'm going to hit import. And so now it's bringing in all of those different images. I'm just going to right click here. And I want to go to the folder in library. When you import something in Lightroom, it puts them first into a current import folder. It doesn't show you exactly where they are located on the hard drive. So I'm going to right click on this, click go to folder in library, and that brings me down to where those are located on my hard drive. In the grid mode, if I'm not already in it, I can hit G, and that'll bring me up in Lightroom to the grid mode. I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to hit contains. Any searchable field contains, and then I'm going to paste this group of images, copy that, into my search bar. And what that will do is bring up just those images that have been selected as the class photos from that folder. So there are all of my class photos right there. I'm going to select them all. Control A will allow me to select all of those images. Or maybe it won't. All right, there it goes. All right, so now that they're all selected, I'm going to go to the Develop module. I'm going to go to Cropping Tool. These are going to be shown in a 4x5 crop. I'm going to select the Auto, Sync, and Done. And then I'm just going to crop all of those images to that same dimension. And I'll look at them. If any of them don't look cropped properly, I'm going to pull that out so that they look like have a better cropping on them. I'm going to go to the grid mode and just take a quick survey to see if anybody is crooked, like this one is. We'll straighten those. If anybody's off-center, like this one is a little bit, center them and maybe crop them a little tighter for that one. This one's off-center and crooked. We're going to correct that. And then I'm just going to look through the others and see if there are any corrections that need to be made. Okay, so I've looked through all of these. They look pretty good. Now I'm going to export them all to a location where I can find them on my hard drive and also where they won't have quite as large a file size. So I'm going to go to File, Export. Since these are not you're going to put them in the specific folder on the hard drive. And I'm going to locate that Eastchester project that I was working from. I was going to look for my classroom proofs, select that folder. I don't want to rename them. I want them to be the same name. I'm going to resize them. 5 inches is large enough because they're only going to be filling up a part of the page. They don't have to be full resolution for our proofs. And once I've got all of my selections made, I'm going to hit export. And now I have all of those files in the folder where they belong. I no longer need this page, so I'm going to delete that. I do need my lookup table to stay the same. And I'm just checking the numbers here. I have 27 images here, and I saw that I was exporting 27 images, so I know I've got all of them. Okay, so now that I've got my images exported, I need to go into HH Schools and get my student data. To do that, I'm going to turn off my group camera and just select my cameras that have images of the students on them. And I'm going to go to Special, 1 image per subject. And it shows me I have 483 total subjects in view. Now what I need to do is select all of those, Control A, and then Control C will copy all of that data that you see on the screen here. I'm going to go into a new tab. I'm going to paste special as text. That puts all the data in there, but unfortunately it's in the wrong orientation. So I'm going to copy it again onto a new page using paste special again, and transpose. And now that puts my data in the right order so that I have one record for each student going across, and then I have my columns as I need them. Okay, so now I need to manipulate this just a little bit. I'm going to insert a row so I can put my headings in here. I'll save those headings for just a minute before I do that. Okay, now looking at our data, let me just go across and explain what we're seeing here. That data corresponds to these columns here, or these rows of data. So there's the image name, the original image name, the subject ID, the group name, the group ID, the package history, background, packages, last name, first name, grade, teacher. As you see, all of that data is listed in here. That's what is showing up in each of those columns. Now, we don't need all of this information, particularly this information from the student ID on over. We don't need all of that information, but I'm just going to take out the ones that don't have any data in the columns at all, so that we end up with only data that we need for making proofs. So for this here, I can take out all of these columns that don't have anything in them. And I'm going to fill this column with the correct dates. Some of these don't have dates in them for some reason. We'll need to go in and correct that in HH Schools as well, but for now I'm going to correct it here first. All right, so that's corrected. While I'm thinking about it, since I noticed it, let me go in here, select all of these. Let me clear my filter. Select all of the images, edit field value, year, 2017, 2018, and correct all of that since I noticed that data error. Okay, so now we've got all the information here that we need. What I need to do now is I need to know for each one of these students or each one of these subjects what the class photo is. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to run a calculation that will allow me to look up the group ID number, which is right here, for each one of these subjects, and that ID number will match this group ID number, and then I need to have it return the group image number. So the way I'm going to do that is to use a formula in Excel. which is going to be equal VLOOKUP. And if you look at this, it's going to tell you the first value here is what value are you looking up. So I'm going to look up the group ID number right there by clicking on it, hit comma. Then it's going to ask for the table array. Where is it looking for this? So I'm going to go over here and tell it I want you to look in these columns right here. And it's added those table arrays. And then it's going to ask me, what do you want to return? And I want to return the column value 2, and I want it to be an exact match, not approximate. So I'm going to put false as the last one of those and hit enter. Let's see what the error is. Class table. Maybe this data needs to be rearranged. I'm going to move this data here. It's possible that the first column needs to be what's being looked up. So I'm going to insert cut cells so that the first thing it sees is that column. Now I'm going to go over here and try that formula again. VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP. I have to have equals in front of a formula. Looking up this value in this table, I want it to give me back the second column, and I want it to be an exact match. And that makes sense on there. None of those worked. Okay, I had a problem with that formula because I had a relative and not an absolute table here. So what I need to do is to edit this formula so that it looks up in the same table, the same cells every time. So in order to make that absolute, I need to put in $signs before each of the cell references. Now it's going to look up A1 to B27 every single time. And then we're going to go down here, and now we've got populated group image numbers that correspond to the group ID numbers all the way down. The ones that don't have those are going to be these with the teachers. And so since these are faculty and staff and they don't have group ID numbers, I'm just going to delete them from my data altogether. So now I have a list of names for all of the group images and an individual image for every student, and they're sorted here by their grade and teacher and by their last names. All right, now I need to get this data formulated for InDesign. So in order to do that, I'm going to first pull up my InDesign file. Okay, so I've opened my F17 class order forms so that we can pull that data into there and get this correct information on here. First thing I'm going to do is look at my data merge and see the names of my column headings. This is going to be important in order to make sure that when I have my data file labeled correctly, that all of these fields are named identical, so that when I pull it in here, all of that data will show up in this template the way it should. So the first one I have is image name and image. Then I have subject ID, group name, group ID, last name, first name, grade, teacher, teacher name. Then I have group image text and group image image name, event, and grade name. In InDesign, when you're doing a data merge, files that don't have any special characters in their headings in your CSV file will be brought in as text. If you put an @ symbol before the heading, it will regard that as an image name. So what I'm going to do here is do two things. I need to duplicate the column with the image names of the individual students. So I need to copy it, and I need to insert the copied cells there. I need to name this as image name, and I need to name this as @ImageName, but Excel will not let me do that unless I change the format of that field. So I need to go to Home and change this from general to text. Now it'll let me type in @ImageName, and then it will show that up correctly. So what I want to make sure is that this is image name, which is how that is listed, and image is how that is listed. So I need to get those two correct. So this needs to be image, capital name, and this needs to be @image to match that. The second is subject ID, group name, and group ID, and those are all with camel text uppercase. So subject ID, this is the original image. Subject ID, group name, group ID, last name, first name, grade, teacher, and there's some other IDs there. Let's look and see. Subject ID, group ID, last name, first name are lowercase, not camel. So I need to correct that. Grade and teacher are uppercase. School name is just one lowercase, so I'm going to do that here. And this actually is a column that is empty. I'm going to delete that column. Year, date, and group. I'm just checking the names there. Year, division, group image, and group image are both uppercase there. So that's correct. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to go up here, change that to text, and add @group image. And I don't have an event name. Which is not, that column is not used, so there's no ones out here, so that column is not used, so it doesn't matter that I don't have it. But I do need to have this column, first name, last name, grade, teacher, school name, year, group image, and grade name. So I don't have a column for grade name. I need to make one. I'm just going to copy this. All right, so now I've got all my headings in my data that match my design in InDesign. I'm going to save this as a CSV file. I'm going to put it in the same folder as the images themselves. And I'm going to call this class photo proof data. and save it. Okay. Now I'm going to close my Excel sheet. I don't need Lightroom open any longer. I'm going to close that. I don't need that file open. I don't need that folder open. So I'm going to open my InDesign and select Data Merge if it's not already selected. Select Data Source. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to find that file that I just saved. Right there, and open. It has one or more empty field names, so I'm going to have to go in and find what field names I left empty. Oh, these don't have any headings on them, so this looks like an ID number, and this looks like a password. Now I'm going to save that, close it, and then try that again. Select Data Source, Class Photos, and Open. All right, so now it doesn't give me any errors, and it shows where these have been used in the proof plan, how many times they're used. So I'm going to try a preview and see if it gives me an error. So there's at least one data placeholder that cannot be found in the data source to make sure all placeholders correspond to the fields in the data source. So one of these field names doesn't match a field name in the design. So I need to go through and figure out what doesn't match. It looks like this grade name is the problem. So let me go in here and see if I can edit that. Select grade name and then select grade name, and it looks like there is a space in that grade name before. Now let me see if that allows me to prove it. All right, so the data source references one or more missing images. The missing image cannot be previewed or merged. So I've got one or more images that doesn't show up correctly. So what I'm going to do is go through and see, as we go through these different images, what I have that's blank. And what it's missing is there's a place for the image of the student and the student's image, but I don't have the student images pulled into this file. So I'm going to need to correct my data file before I can go any further. All right, in order to get the images that are going to go on that folder for each individual student, I'm going to go into my HH Schools folder and my project data. Okay, so I'm in my project data folder, finding my East Chester Elementary School folder. I'm going to go to the thumbnails folder. Now let me show you, these are all PNG files in here. So what I want to do is select PNG files, and I want to select all the files that are .png. I'm going to copy all of them, Control C, and put those in a folder. Okay, so I'm pasting those images into this folder here, and then I will change the orientation of them for my proofs. Okay, so now all of these individuals are crooked, they're sideways, so I'm going to go through, select all of the individual images, and correct the orientation of them here in my Windows folder. Just right click and rotate left, and it'll take a few minutes for that to happen. Okay, that finished rotating all of my images, so now they're in the correct orientation. And I'm going to correct my data file with that information. And let me see if I can preview it. Still telling me there's missing some information, so I may need to check my image name here. Open that data folder and check and see what this is calling. Okay. So the problem is my image name and @image columns are looking for JPEG files, but in my folder they're PNG files. So all I'm going to do is just change this from a JPEG to a PNG file. So I'm going to go to Select, Replace, those two columns highlighted, .jpg, and replace it with .png, and replace all, and that replaced all of those. So that should fix the problem that InDesign is having and not being able to locate those correct images. I'm going to go save my file, close my file, and update the data source. Oops, not update data source, update data source. There we go. Now it should put the picture in here, give me the name down here, and add the correct image information there. And it shows my class photo. All right, so there were no errors returned on that. I'm just going to look at my last one, make sure that it's correct. My first one, it's correct. So now we're ready to make this into a PDF file. I'm going to export this to a PDF file, single record, and click OK. Now it's going to ask me how I want to do it. I want it a high quality print, and I'm going to export it. I'm going to put it in that same folder with all the other information that we have for that school. Eastchester Spring, Eastchester Spring, classroom photos, and I'm going to name this S18, Eastchester Elementary School Class Order Forms PDF, and save. And that's going to take quite a while for it to export all of those images and data into a single file. So I'm going to stop the recording, and when that's done, then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so this was good news. It says no overset text was generated when merging records. That just means there was no text that went off of the page when it created that. All right, so now we've got our PDF file created. It's in the same folder with all of our other Spring information. Now I notice in doing that I have one error, and I didn't notice this before, so this is a problem. Orders due November 14th, that is the incorrect date, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete that whole folder. I'm going to have to resend that. I need to change my order due. I just didn't do that beforehand. So we're going to make these orders due April 17. And we're going to go through the same process to data merge, export to PDF, OK, export, and change the file name and put it in the right folder. And now that's going to export and take a little while for that to fix. Okay, so this has completed, and it says there's no overset text. So we'll look in our folder. There's our file. The images are there, and the data is correct on it. Open that up, and we're going to send that to the printer. File, print, and need to make sure that we have the correct sizes and that our paper size is correct. Okay, so we want an actual size and choose paper source by PDF page size. And on our properties, we want this to be one-sided, auto color. We want the quality to be fine, and we want it to be best quality. And then under the basic tab, we want this to be exported to the output method is going to go to the user box. And we're going to give it a name, S18, each test eliminated role group proof. Okay. And OK. And we're going to send that to print, and it'll take a while for that to send over to the printer. Okay, so now that that has exported to the printer, we're ready to go to the printer and print off the proof sheets.